And the vice president's speech comes as Democrats in the House try to force a vote on their version of the immigration legislation bill. One of those Democrats, Representative Bill Foster of Illinois' 11th Congressional District, joins me on the phone this evening. Congressman, welcome back to Politics Tonight. Always nice to talk with you.
Hi, Paul. Glad to be here.
So your efforts are to force the House to deal with a comprehensive immigration bill by using the strategy called a discharge petition. A lot of people may not know what that is. It's an interesting way to try and get around the Speaker. Can you explain that to our viewers, how that works?
It's a mechanism that's put into the rules of the House to deal with leadership gridlock, which is exactly what we're seeing here. It is a mechanism where a simple majority of members of the House, Democrats or Republicans, can sign a petition and say, we do not want this bill bottled up in committee. We want to bring it out for an immediate vote on the floor of the House. It's something that's used. I think it was used only once or twice in the whole time that Dennis Hastert was Speaker. And so it's a rare thing. Very often the thing that makes it difficult is that the Speaker of the House warns members of his party that if you sign on to this, you're going to hear about it from me. You're going to see your power to get things done reduced a lot.
Yeah, imagine political threats, huh?
Just imagine it, yes. And so this is the reason it's so rare. But in this case, all that would really be necessary is for Speaker Boehner to signal that he is simply not going to punish Republicans who do the right thing. There are more than enough Republicans who've said publicly that they support comprehensive immigration reform. And everyone involved is confident that if you simply brought up, for example, the Senate bill or the House version of it, that you would have a strong bipartisan majority voting for it. Because the people of the U.S. Very strongly believe it's past time to pass comprehensive immigration reform.
Well, and indeed, you're at 200 sponsors of the immigration bill. 3 of them are Republicans. But as you know, you got to have 218 signatures. So you've already explained the political ramifications or consequences on some of those Republicans. But what is your sense about how likely you are to get those extra votes that you need? I mean, is it really, I mean, if John Boehner doesn't say, I promise not to punish you, does that mean you'll never get the votes you need?
Do not know. This is a thing where every member of Congress has to really look inside themselves and their spirit and ask themselves, why is it that I'm in public service? Because when you see something like this that is strongly supported by a very large majority of Americans, when you see it's something that will improve the lives of millions of American families, and you ask yourself, why am I not supporting this? Why am I opposing even up for a vote when so many people's lives depend on it? Maybe I'm an idealist that way, but I think that it's something that can happen at any time. John Boehner himself could just wake up some morning and listen to his church and say, it is past time, and he can just decide to bring up the Senate bill. It would pass, and 5 days after that, it would be the law of the land.
And well, let me ask you the question. It's even easier, and I don't think you can answer this one either. It's almost rhetorical. What does keep the Speaker from calling the bill and letting it pass or fail on its own merits?
His speakership hangs by a thread. A large number of the extreme right wing in the Republican Party voted against him as Speaker. If he loses any more of the Tea Party caucus, he's in real trouble in terms of holding on to his speakership, and this is the group that is threatening him. And this is the gridlock you're seeing, not between the parties, but inside the Republican caucus. And it's a very painful thing to watch, especially when you see the damage it's doing to real families in our country.
Yeah, it's one thing when Republicans sort of fight on the Obamacare issue because that's a political issue that they're looking at for November. But when you look at immigration, Republicans need the Latino vote. It just makes no sense. Am I right that the sticking point here is the path to citizenship? That's the problem.
No, it is more than.
Okay.
The Republican point, their response when the Senate hammered out a bipartisan compromise, their response was they were going to break it up into little pieces. And then when they actually tried to write down that plan, they found it made no sense at all. Because, for example, the Senate bill was going to spend $50 billion on improving border security and fences. Okay, but they got the $50 billion from the payments for people that were on the path to citizenship for 10 years, for 13 years, who were paying taxes but not yet eligible for benefits. And that's where the money came from. So when they try to split off border security from the path to citizenship, then they find it just doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Well, I have you, Congressman. I want to talk about your Project Growth series. It's about jobs and economic development in your district. There was a meeting today at the Will County Board Chambers. Fill us in.
Yes, this is something that I have been meeting with people all over the 11th district, and one of the themes that I saw was just a real enthusiasm for bridging the gap between the jobs that are available and the training for people that would like to hold those jobs. There are more than 5,000 job postings in Will County alone, and these are not being filled because there are not people that have the correct skills. And the unemployment, meanwhile, is over 9% in Will County. And so that we brought together educators, administrators, businessmen and women who were frustrated with their inability to match the skills with the available jobs.
So you've got 4 elements to this growth plan. I want to just briefly talk about each of them. The first one, strengthening the middle class. So go ahead and pick up on.
These are things that you can do in Washington. These are things like passing minimum wage. We have things like passing unemployment insurance, and passing things like adequately funding things like the Workforce Investment Act, which actually gets people who are marginally employed the skills they need to get good 21st century jobs.
And you also want to work on, I'm sorry to move you along, but we're short on time. Transportation is critical for you. That sounds like something that can happen in Washington, too.
That's right. They started early in the morning when Agriculture Secretary Vilsack came in to Will County, and he talked to the intermodal transport facility down south of Joliet. And he talked about the importance of transportation infrastructure to agriculture, which is very important in Will County. And there, of course, there are things like the Ileana Expressway, which is very important, and the need to improve the infrastructure in the waterways and the locks and dam system.
And you also want to take a look at education and manufacturing as the other 2 prongs of this. Education, of course, I can see the relationship. Manufacturing, I know the 8th district is big in manufacturing. What about the 11th?
Oh, yeah, where we've been big in manufacturing for a long time. It has, not only Aurora and Joliet, which are traditional manufacturing cities, it has the high-tech corridor of Naperville, Lyle, Downers Grove. And so that it is a long history in manufacturing, and it's transitioning, as is the rest of the economy, to advanced manufacturing. And so we're becoming very heavily involved in the UI initiative that was recently funded.
All right. Congressman Bill Foster, so much.